Protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
You're locked into Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss sports podcast with Ben Garrett and Billy Embody of the Ole Miss Spirit.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Talk of Champions. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for joining me on this recruiting edition of the podcast. Of course, brought to you by our friends at RiverLand Roofing, riverlandroofing.com. You can also call or text them, 662-644-4297. Appreciate all Billy Landis and his team does for us at the Ole Miss Spirit and Talk of Champions, of course, powering everything we do, and also all they do for Ole Miss in the NIL space. So make sure you give them a call today or just go online and see all the different things they can do for you to handle all your roofing needs. But wanted to lead off Monday morning bright and early with a recruiting podcast because it was a huge recruiting weekend for Ole Miss. Those official visitors were in town on a picture-perfect weekend in Oxford with the baseball regional rolling. And the Rebels now playing Monday night for that championship, which is, you almost wish they had one more night there to get a feel for that championship atmosphere. But talking with some of the recruits this weekend, it was a grade A weekend to be in Oxford. And most of the guys were able to at least get one game, and most of them also went to multiple games from what I was told and what some of them have told me. But Ole Miss had double-digit official visitors on campus. They had multiple flip targets on campus. They had blue-chip guys. They had a guy who right now would end up being a five-star for On3 if the rankings ended. So a huge opportunity for Lane Kiffin and company to impress. Now, Lane Kiffin was balancing a little high school graduation for Presley out of Mater Dei, so he got a touch of time with some of these recruits. But really, it was all about the atmosphere in Oxford this weekend. All of these guys, save for, I think, Carmelo Reed, the Wisconsin commit who was on campus, have all been to Oxford on multiple occasions, and they've gotten time with Lane Kiffin. So this is a lot of times now with these 2026 prospects, when you get these summer official visits, especially the June ones, they've already been to your campus multiple times. And if not, then that kind of tells you, okay, maybe we're swinging our shot here, but we're a dark horse. We're trying to make a late move. But for these recruits that were on campus, Ole Miss really sitting in a strong position for overall going into the weekend, and they kept up that momentum with multiple prospects. But I do want to lead off with one prospect that is going to get a lot a buzz around him because of the news of the day, which is that Emanuel Tucker, the Mississippi State commit, is no longer a Mississippi State commit. The four-star offensive tackle decommitting from the Bulldogs Monday morning, sharing that he is going to open things up. And he is fresh off of that Ole Miss official visit. He does go to LSU this weekend. Steve Wiltfong, our national recruiting analyst, did submit a prediction for the Tigers in that recruitment, which is something, look, Ole Miss is going to have to battle. LSU did a good job getting Tyler Miller out of state last year. Now they've got to try and fend off another push for one of the top offensive tackles, not only in Mississippi, but in the country. And that's what Ole Miss is trying to do. A lot of people are working hard to try and get Emanuel Tucker to be a Rebel. But if you've been following this podcast, there are also a lot of prospects at the offensive line position, in particular offensive tackle, that John Garrison and this staff is going after. They've cast that wide net for this position in particular. And, for Ole Miss, you still would like to think that there is a chance here, which if there's one thing I've known for years before even stepping foot into this role covering Ole Miss is Mississippi recruitments are always going to be hard on those out-of-state schools to get kids out of state that the in-state programs want in general. And for Ole Miss, they've been pushing for Emanuel Tucker. He's not far from Oxford, obviously. And so this is a key priority for them. And he's got all of the right, physical tools, traits, all the things that you want in a prototypical offensive tackle. And, as Ole Miss tries to build up that offensive tackle spot from the high school ranks a little bit more, this is a imperative prospect that they get across the finish line. And there are multiple offensive linemen, offensive tackles in the state and on Ole Miss's board. So don't get me wrong, but LSU's clearly done a good job behind the scenes, enough that Steve Wiltfong did put in his prediction. I didn't have one in on him going into his Mississippi State decision, which kind of came out of the blue. Kind of thought that there was a good chance that one wouldn't hold up anyway. But now you have him opening things up formally, and this is that chance, that opportunity now with a level playing field where Ole Miss will have to kind of come around here and find a way to get Emanuel Tucker to end up being a Rebel. So, as they go through this process now, they'll have to battle LSU more out in the open, not necessarily behind the scenes, but it is worth noting that the first prediction in, as soon as he decommitted, did go to LSU. So keep a close eye on that one. He's a pivotal target for Ole Miss, but they did have other offensive linemen on campus, and one of which or both of whom are rated as offensive tackles, and one who's been flying up the board for not only Ole Miss, but also On3, being ranked as a 4-star. And we talked about him going into the weekend, so it's a good segue here to mention Tyler Chuck-Uman, a really, really elite looking offensive tackle. He looks the part, 6'6", 290. He's out of the Peach State, just was named a 4-star by On3 when I kind of sent him up the ranks there and said, hey, this guy's got 4 official visits set. One of them's to Ole Miss. We're going to have to get a ranking on him. So really good job by our staff to get him ranked and get him, evaluated, and to slap a 4-star grade on him in kind of the middle of that in between with the on 300 update, still a little bit of a ways out, says a lot about what Charles Power and our rankings team thinks about Tyler. And so Ole Miss has been surging there. I haven't been able to get in touch with Tyler just yet, but we'll let you know when we do. But the prospect that I did get in touch with was Tyreek Jemison, who just raved about his Ole Miss visit. He said the Rebels are on top. He said they're, a program that he's considering committing to, and by considering, he's giving it that serious thought after the visit. It sounds like, though, he's going to take those official visits and let things play out. But he's a big offensive lineman that John Garrison's been pushing for a minute now, and he was the third of 3 offensive linemen in town this weekend. So a really talented prospect there, who again has the size and all of the things and boxes that you check for some of these offensive linemen. But the offensive line position is one that Ole Miss has cast a pretty wide net for. So the big news of the day is certainly Emanuel Tucker's decommitment. Wanted to lead off with that. He is somebody that the Rebels are going to continue to work on. Like Joseph Moore said in the comments, it is going to come down to LSU and Ole Miss. There's usually very little chance of when you decommit from a program and you end up recommitting to the program. So I would say State's chances are very low there. So that's something to know. But LSU's clearly done a good job there to get in position, and now they're going to host him for an official visit this weekend. When you or before we go on to a little Tristen Keys talk kind of in the middle of the official visit drop, because I know it's in the title, I don't want to make people wait too much longer. I do want to remind you guys about our friend Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise, myperfectfranchise.net. Reach out to him today. He's got Ole Miss ties, and this is a reason why he's out there supporting the Rebels. When you partner with Andy on a franchise, he'll donate money back to Ole Miss's NIL collective, the Grove Collective. So go to myperfectfranchise.net or give him a call, 404-973-9901, or email him, Andy, ANDY, at myperfectfranchise.net. He can walk you through the whole process and really give you a good feel for how it will impact your family, how it will impact your money, what it could mean for growing your money, what's the investment, all of those things on the franchise world. So go to myperfectfranchise.net for more. Tristan Keys made news on Sunday as On3's Steve Wiltfong broke the news of his official visit schedule, which we kind of knew that Tristan Keys, the 5-star wide receiver from Hattiesburg, would make official visits this summer. It was just kind of a matter of when. He's been committed to LSU since March, but that has not stopped plenty of programs from, working on him for more official visits and getting things scheduled. He did schedule that Miami visit, which he took. They impressed. And now the rest of the visit schedule has been laid out. He's also going to visit Auburn. He's also expected to visit Alabama, Texas A&M, Tennessee. And a lot of people are wondering, well, where's Ole Miss in this? And for me, trying to weed through all the buzz around Tristan Keys, who's a top 5 prospect overall, number 1 wide receiver in the country, 1,300 yards last year, 14 touchdowns, an elite prospect on so many levels, is what are kind of what's kind of the streets saying, so to speak, on Tristan Keys. And quite frankly, this is a player that has a lot of buzz around him in Mississippi that Ole Miss is going to be there at the end for him. And I have not had him in my class prediction piece as of late. I just haven't heard enough to put him in there yet. Leaving the spring, entering the summer, he was someone that I was considering putting in there, but you just hadn't heard that, oh, don't worry, this is all just a whatever. He's going to end up at Ole Miss. That's not what I'm hearing yet. What I'm hearing is that Ole Miss is going to very much be a player. And like Caleb Cunningham last cycle, who did not take an official visit to Ole Miss until the fall. That would be the route Tristan Keys would go if you're Ole Miss trying to get him done, trying to get him across the finish line at some point down the line. It doesn't matter if he doesn't take an official visit this summer. It matters, there's a bottom line number, I'm sure, that it would take to get Tristan Keys to any of these programs. And that is something that has been communicated to me as obviously a big factor when you're a top 10 prospect, number 1 at your position. And everyone knows that in this day and age. But Ole Miss is, at least continue to put themselves in position to be in those discussions and not necessarily just allow him to walk out of state. He's a huge priority for Lane Kiffin. Been able to continue to have those conversations. Had him on campus right after that commitment to LSU. He literally came right to Oxford. So we're keeping a close eye on Tristan Keys, but he did lock in a bunch of official visits for the rest of the summer. And we'll see. This one's going to be certainly a fun one over there to watch in Hattiesburg, potentially for Ole Miss. The only way it's fun is if he ends up in Oxford, but obviously a really talented prospect. Ole Miss is going to do everything in its power to get him. For me, though, most of these top 10 type of prospects that, are keeping it open like this are going to keep it open all the way through the finish line. So something to keep an eye on there with Tristan Keys, as he did lock in his official visits for this summer. Getting back to the big official visit weekend for Ole Miss, you did have multiple flip targets like I talked about. And I want to highlight a few of them that were on campus and, gave some good reviews and things like that. And, we talked about Emanuel Tucker decommitting off the jump, but the couple of prospects that were also on campus are Carson Reed, the 4-star tight end committed to Tennessee, who, seemed like he had a good visit, didn't say, oh, I'm opening it up. Didn't do that like Emanuel Tucker did, but somebody to certainly keep an eye on, at least as he goes through his final decision-making process. And then, you look at a guy like Jermichael Garrett, though, who Pete Golding brought in. He's right there in Baton Rouge at Central High. He's originally from Oxford, Mississippi, Oxford, Alabama. And he was actually hosted by TJ Daughtery, a Montgomery native. So they've got that Bama boys connection. Jermichael really said that was a cool kind of experience for him to get that time with a fellow Alabama native who's, emerged as a player for Ole Miss, who's going to be, a key guy for the Rebels, and just he followed him around every second this weekend, is what he said. And so this Ole Miss visit with Jermichael Garrett, I think, really stood out to him. I don't know if it's enough for them to obviously win the recruitment just yet. Auburn has had him committed for coming up on a year now, and if they can get him, that would obviously give you two blue chip linebackers that give you the number one linebacker in the country in Isaiah Williams. Also give you a 4-star linebacker who you've had ties to for a while. Pete Golding recruited him very, very early on in the process and has jumped all over him for a while now. So for them to get an official visit is a nice gesture. He did rave about it. He was very, very, very complimentary of the entire visit. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to land his commitment. He is going to check out Miami. He's going to check out Texas A&M. USC is poking around there. Auburn doesn't have an official visit scheduled, so that's something certainly worth noting with Jermichael Garrett. But, just a really nice kid who raved about his time in Oxford and the plan for him and the plan to get on the field and how quickly that can happen. So we'll be keeping now he's somebody we have to keep a close eye on. He took an early Ole Miss early Ole Miss visit as a freshman, he said, that spring of freshman year, and now has made his way back to Oxford. It's been a minute, but now he made his way back. So we'll keep a close eye there, see kind of what the buzz is on, from sources behind the scenes as the dust settles from that visit. But the one that I've kept a close eye on for a while is Carmelo Reed, the Wisconsin commitment, who Randall Joyner, just really has, prioritized in a big way. They got the first official visit of the summer. He's expected at Wisconsin next weekend. But he told me he had a great time in Oxford, and the Rebels are, put the best foot forward here to try and get him to flip. And he is really intriguing. 6'7", listed at 250 pounds. And he is so raw too, from what I understand. Plays a little high, as you can see if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and follow us there. But he has that frame that just is so freaky. And he is a great young man. And from what I understand, is kind of gone through a lot in his life already, and yet has such a great attitude, has such a great mindset, and really is just very, very nice. And so he had a great official visit with Randall Joyner, and getting down to Ole Miss, getting his chance to spend some time with him, just really wowed him. And I think Ole Miss is very much a player here. And we noted that in our initial update on the weekend. We didn't even, have a quote from him yet, but we had just kind of heard from behind the scenes that Carmelo Reed really had a nice time with Ole Miss. So make sure you subscribe to the Ole Miss Spirit for just $1 for your first week. A lot of content rolling. I think we had a handful of full interviews on Sunday. We've got another one with Jermichael Garrett already up on the site. And I'll talk about Ole Miss's 2 commitments that were on campus as well in just a minute. I spoke with Braylon Williams, the Tupelo defensive back, who's in town. But keep an eye on Carmelo Reed, and at a position where Ole Miss really likes these kind of jumbo defensive ends that could be kind of moved around a little bit. This guy is so raw, such a really good ball of clay for Randall Joyner to work with, and I'm really excited to see kind of how his senior year unfolds wherever he goes. He's a really, really just bright young man who's just been able to battle through a lot of hardship in his life, and he's got a lot to be proud of. So Ole Miss has really pushed hard there, and we'll see if the Rebels can pull it off. But that is kind of the rundown on the flip targets and kind of where things stand with those guys. Of course, we want to look at the state of Mississippi. We don't want to give everything away on this podcast that we're going to have on the site. There's no doubt about that. But if you look at the state of Mississippi, there were multiple guys on campus that are committed to the Rebels. One of them is from the state of Mississippi. Braylon Williams, Tupelo cornerback, was back in town fresh off of his decommitment from Mississippi State, and then ultimately committed to Ole Miss in mid-April, April 11th. He is a really intriguing prospect because he plays quarterback for Tupelo, but he really has a future at the position where he could play all over the secondary. They see him at corner, they see him at nickel, they see him at safety. That's what he told me. That's what he really likes about the pitch there from Wes Neighbors, from Brian Brown, from the defensive staff as a whole, is just that chance to play anywhere in the secondary and get on the field early on. That's a really nice piece to the puzzle when you have those type of players that can play all over. And it's part of the deal that Ole Miss was looking for in the portal. Not necessarily trying to find guys that are pigeonholed into just playing corner or just playing this or just playing that. They need to find guys that are versatile because they need help as a whole. And Braylon Williams really had a nice time spending time with the coaches, spending time with the players, getting a chance to recruit some of the guys. And another commitment that was on campus was, of course, Jermichael Jones, the big running back out of Pike Road. They got him back on campus. Things look to be in really good shape for him. Obviously, to stick with Ole Miss, they did a good job getting him committed early. You get him back on campus for his official visit. That should continue to solidify things and his future with the Rebels. So good move there to get him on campus and help and have another guy help recruiting for this staff over the course of a weekend is always a good thing. So Jermichael Jones was also on campus. I'll wrap up here with a couple more in-state prospects kind of wanted to run down here. And the big one is Jace Matthews. And for Ole Miss, Jace Matthews is a huge priority. And not only because he's in-state, but he's right on the cusp of being a 5-star for On3. If the rankings ended today, he would be a 5-star prospect. And Jace Matthews took his first summer official visit to Ole Miss. Good sign there. Doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things these days, but he made sure to get right back to Ole Miss, and he told our own Chad Simmons and then followed it up with me. Really feels good about things with Ole Miss. It was a time to remember. He felt very welcomed, and their message was that he can be one of the next NFL wide receivers for Ole Miss. They felt like they did a good job with him conveying how big of a priority he is to them. Auburn is probably the main competition here. Texas A&M is another program in the mix. Colorado had him on campus earlier this year, but for Ole Miss to show him just how big of a priority he is, that's really important. He's considering the 4 schools on his list. He's playing that sort of not game because he's not playing games, but it's his future. But Ole Miss is right there in the mix to land him, certainly in a good spot after this official visit. He's just such an elite wide receiver. I think he's got a really bright future ahead, and Ole Miss is right there in position to land him. You stick in state, though, and Corey Wells is a prospect that quickly got an official visit to Ole Miss scheduled. He has an Auburn official visit scheduled for, I think he might even be going there today, and it starts tomorrow. It's kind of a midweek thing, I believe. But from what he had told me, it was right back to back, and told On3 as well. So keep a close eye on Corey Wells and kind of his recruitment, because I think this is what I think. I haven't confirmed this yet, but I think he could make a decision relatively soon after this Auburn official visit. That's just kind of me putting the tea leaves together. Most of these kids will go take an official visit one weekend, take one the next, take their visits, and then do a decision, at some point during the summer. And Corey Wells, though, has quickly gotten Ole Miss and Auburn on the schedule, and they're right back to back. Those are the two that were considered to be kind of the front runners of sorts going into the summer. And A&M's kind of been poking around there as well, but it just seems like he could make a decision again quickly after this next visit. So I haven't talked to Corey about that yet. We did text a little bit about the visit. He really had a nice time. Again, raved about the job Randall Joyner did on his visit and just what they had kind of put together overall on the visit weekend, but it's a guy that we're now kind of on commit watch for, because it seems like, just from reading the tea leaves, his timeline has certainly sped up a little bit here. So this will be a big weekend to kind of look back on, because it seems like they really had a lot of prospects that, they did really well with. And that's always a good thing when you bring these official visitors on campus. So kind of looking ahead to the rest of the week, Ole Miss will have an offensive line, defensive line camp, as well as 7-on-7 tournament on Wednesday. We'll be in attendance for that at the Ole Miss Spirit. Make sure you subscribe and read us for just $1 for your first week. Get all the latest on Ole Miss recruiting on the site. Got baseball coverage. Obviously, the Rebels are getting into it Monday night as they look to try and take home this regional championship. And what a weekend it was for Ole Miss baseball, especially Sunday. I was following it. I was at another camp and watching Ole Miss absolutely go off to survive the losers bracket and make that championship game was really something. I mean, being able to obviously hold off Georgia Tech 11-9, and then you come out and you beat up on Murray State 19-8. Really, really impressive stuff. Now you've got the Monday matchup, and Ole Miss has to be obviously kind of ready to turn the page very quickly and see what they can put together on Monday as they look to advance to the Super Regional. They play at 5 p.m. Central on Monday, and man, Swayze, I hope everybody didn't cancel those plans or change your plans for Monday night. As once that Friday game went final and they lost. But Hooks and Morris are as Dirty Bird in the chat says, probably the guys that everybody's going to be putting their trust in as Ole Miss looks to take home the regional and advance to the Super Regional. So look, a lot of content on the Ole Miss Spirit from baseball, a lot of football content as well in the football recruiting front. So make sure you subscribe for just $1, guys. And I will say this, we're not done on the official visit weekend. We've got 3 more ahead. Huge weekend with guys like Deuce Gerald, Xavier McDonald, Landon Barnes, Ant Davis, multiple other prospects set to see Ole Miss this coming weekend. And we'll be covering it all for you on the Ole Miss Spirit. So make sure you guys subscribe today. We appreciate RiverLand Roofing for all they do for us. Of course, our friends at College Corner, check them out, Flowwood, Ridgeland, and the Oxford Commons. Get your gear from there. We have the special link in our bio to get the gear from College Corner and get suited up for Monday night. And you can buy it online, or you can go to the store at Oxford Commons before you hit Swayze. So make sure you do that. And we appreciate all of you guys who support us at the Ole Miss Spirit and Talk of Champions. This has been a down and dirty recruiting recap from a huge weekend in Oxford. So looking forward to chatting with you guys more this week. And we'll catch you on the website, Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, an affiliate of On3. Thanks for listening, everyone. And you guys in the chat, appreciate you guys chiming in as well. Talk to you next time. I'm Billy Embody.